are back. We are back, sponsored by nobody, unfortunately. We're getting
sponsored by me because you're in my apartment.
Sponsored by insert your business here.
Yeah.
This could be you.
Yeah. But regardless, we're back with You're Already Accepted, a community rewatch. We got Christian.
Heyo.
We got Ethan.
What's up?
We got John.
Remy.
We got Remy.
Where's
Pears.
Shout out to Rick Ross. Shout out to Pears. No, but we got Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. And
The
we
episode.
also have
Asian population.
Asian population studies.
Which is honestly a pretty clever title when you think about the episode about. We'll get there though.
Yeah. But let's start off with a little synopsis. a
little synopsis. We made that joke too many times. We're trying to revamp our humor selection, but yeah. Yo, guys,
Give us some time.
This is probably my favorite episode of the entire series.
Really?
It's a good one.
Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. So the episode is shot in the style of you'll have to remind me of the name of the people who animated those old claymation.
I have no idea who animated them.
There's like a name for them, but it's shot in the style of like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Jack Frost. You know, kind of
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Santa Claus is coming to town. Those like 1960s, 70s.
Santa Claus coming to town.
Exactly. And so the plot of the episode is Abed is in stop motion. Like he sees everything in claymation, but nobody else does. And so the episode really takes place from Abed's perspective. We're kind of in his brain, and he's trying to find the meaning of Christmas because he thinks if he can find the meaning of Christmas, it'll explain why he's in that claymation state. And so the group sits down with him and they quote unquote go along a journey with him to find the meaning of Christmas. And I'm still doing air quotes. End quote.
It's basically an intervention.
But it's an intervention, right? It's therapy. And so Duncan, love John Oliver. He's in the episode trying to get a book published based on this experience, but also pretending, kind of disguising it as trying to help Abed. So, I love this episode. So I'll go ahead and wait to do my A+ so you guys get those out of the way.
Well, I love what. Oh, go for it. You got it.
I love, let's see, Pierce has a line where he goes, it's probably Arabic for not clearly, which I can't remember what Abed says right before. I usually have a clear cue, but there I was like, but yeah, Pierce just being racist, easy.
And then Troy's like, "Are you really going to high five me for that?"
Yeah, you're gonna tarnish the high five.
You're gonna tarnish the high five for that.
Abed, when they're like kind of asking about the whole claymation thing, Duncan says something like, "Well, while you're in this delusion," and Abed goes, "It's not a delusion." Duncan goes, "Very publishable." And then just Chang as a snowman, just
you made me want to cry in the shower later.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, while you're here, how about 10 more seconds on that last button?
Also, apparently, I never knew this, but I saw a commentary. Whenever Abed is in the Wonderland and he's like, "Oh, we're talking about some Willy Wonka type stuff here, like really dark," you see Chang in the background.
Yeah, I saw the snowman. I didn't realize that was Chang though.
Right, and so is that supposed to be like in the series in this season, Chang is trying to get into the group, so he's always like in the background.
The danger is Chang,
right?
I think. Yeah.
Interesting, and I never put two and two together until I saw somebody talk about that.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines from this. I mean, yeah, you had a couple of good ones too, Jonathan. One of my favorites is whenever they're walking through Carroll Canyon and there's like the little plants or something are like singing Christmas songs or like humming. And Pierce goes, "Well, it costs a lot to walk through here." Abed goes, "Don't worry, it's public domain." Like the songs just like, it's a public domain song, so they don't have to pay for them. There's a couple of jokes like that through Community where they like the meta joke, like, "Yeah, we didn't want to pay for the song, so we just whatever." And then just I have written down as A+, not really a line or a scene so much as like a couple of scenes that just this episode really gets to my emotions. Like Troy and Annie like fighting Duncan on top of the train.
It gave me chills.
Yeah, it gets you chills. And then whenever Duncan reads the card from Abed's mom, like you start I guess I tear up every time when I see that. It's so sad.
You're a man.
And then at the very end, whenever the group's watching the movie with Abed and then it turns off and you see their reflections, but it's for real people.
Yeah.
That's good.
Man. It's so
that's film right there.
Yeah, that's genius.
Yeah.
Good job. I'm honestly like it's just so heartwarming. And by this point in the show, we obviously are very connected to these characters. So for Abed to kind of arguably like the favorite character for most people that are fans of the show, he's kind of like the, you love Abed. You can't help but love him.
Right.
And
the concern, the concern that you see from all his friends. Yeah. Even though like it's almost like an outsider's perspective, like you recognize that Abed is still the main character of the show, but you can like almost hear like from the back of his head that he's hearing his friends talk to him. Yeah.
And I mean, I think just obviously Christmas, everybody loves Christmas or has, even if you say you don't like Christmas, I think you enjoy it at some point. And everybody has, memories with Christmas. And I think we're gonna talk with a little bit later in depth about that, but, man, what a great use of like, not only using a different medium to tell the story of like the claymation, but also for it to really just kind of be like an emotional, like look at, it's really just an episode about Abed and like his experience with Christmas. And I mean, he's a Muslim, but like he's even goes like, hey, I'm a Muslim, but yeah, I enjoy Christmas. Like it means a lot. Memories of my mom, watching Rudolph and stuff. Like it can still be enjoyable for people, even if they don't celebrate it for the same reasons as everybody else.
Yeah.
I really, again, this is an episode that I really enjoy all that much. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's still something very, very, like, I don't know if there's a community episode that makes me as more like emotionally attached as this one. It's just such a wholesome episode to me. But I don't know what you got, Christian. I know you have a lot.
Yeah, I have a lot on this episode, so everybody's going to hate me by the end of this episode. I just feel like the holiday season, insert in any of our holiday zones and community, you can practice your beliefs. But I feel like
I'm just going to say it. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
You even just feel like saying Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like there's a spectrum where the holidays are either filled with a lot of like sentimentality, just like a longing for better times, and there's like a juxtaposition of this is how things are in my life compared to this is what Christmas is really made out to be. Like every car commercial from now until January, because they keep playing the same commercials till January.
It's in snow, and
it's always the picturesque theme. And so for somebody like me who like assigns meaning to everything, I wrote a song about it. You may have heard about it.
Meaning to Christian Nixon.
Yeah, exactly. But then on the other end, I feel like there are people who they have a lot of joy around the season, but it seems kind of shallow. And I'm not dismissing those people, but it's like they buy into the whole like, oh, we're gonna go look at Christmas lights, and we're gonna go, we're gonna wrap all the presents the same way, and we're gonna
wear matching pajamas.
Right. And it's like, man, I wish I could be like that. And you never know, maybe I might find somebody who brings me around who loves Christmas, right? But I do feel like, and they talk about this in the episode, that everybody, and Ethan mentioned that everybody's got a connection to the holiday season. Duncan's is full of a lot of trauma, and Abed's is too. And I love just the use of the claymation as the medium for it. That's perfect. I mean, this episode won an Academy Award for the character animation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But it reminds me of growing up. Ethan and I, we kind of come to realize that our childhood was a bit different. We didn't watch Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon around Christmas. We had a VHS that had Arthur's Perfect Christmas, Frosty the Snowman, Frosty Returns, Barney's Magic Christmas, which we always fast forwarded through. Garfield's Christmas. I'm trying to think of it in the right order because there was an order.
I don't remember the order. There's another one forgetting.
Snowden. Yeah. And I feel like there's one more.
There was
about Edward Snowden.
About
it's like they want a Christmas.
Right. And see, it was recorded over like TV. Like it was one of those like old VHSs that recorded. So it was always fun to kind of see like the commercials from the year 2000. Yeah. And even now, like kind of VHS tape still like works.
Yeah.
So like this unlocked, a deep like nostalgia.
Oh, there was the Charlie Brown Christmas.
The Charlie Brown Christmas, right? Which even now, Ethan and I like to be like, oh, it's that time of year again. We're gonna watch the same 7 Christmas specials on VHS. But I also like Ethan kind of pointed out that you get really connected to all of the characters in this episode, because everybody shows their level of care in different ways. Because Jeff he's really sarcastic. But he does ultimately come back to help Abed. And it's great how you can see, like, whenever Abed is frozen at the end of the episode, because Duncan reads the letter, the fact that everybody comes back and they're playing into the Christmas theme, like they're doing that for Abed. Like I can picture it that, in the real world outside of the claymation, Abed's just sitting there catatonic and Duncan's just like, what did I do? And everybody else comes back in like, cause they've left and they've come back. So that's awesome. But you see, there are some subplots in the episode which you might not realize, like Duncan wanting to publish his writing, Jeff wanting to go get laid.
Yeah.
Like you can tell, like this is
not going to get
laid, right? But then even like Britta and the dean wanting to expel Britta, Abed and
which
Britta.
I don't really understand that. Why would they expel Abed?
Because he was jumping on the cars, I think.
Is that really
right?
Yeah.
I guess.
Was he actually jumping on the cars, or was it just for the titles?
I think he actually was because he was actually building a snowman, quote unquote. You know,
fondling
Chang. And that's just heartbreaking because like you can tell that Britta does care about Abed, but I think it's kind of what we talked about with our last episode of she cares about Abed in her own way, and she doesn't recognize that like this is still like his journey. But okay, so in the episode, whenever Abed takes everybody on his magical Christmas journey to plan Abed, he turns everybody into a different character. And Dan Harmon actually had an interview where he talked through each of the characters. And so every character is turned into what Abed sees them as. And I couldn't put together all of the ones, but he sees Jeff as a Jeff in the box because Abed sees Jeff as a talking head with a limited practical functionality. Like he talks a big game, but he doesn't really ever exert himself. He sees Pierce as somebody who might deserve more love than he gets. So he's a teddy bear. He sees Troy as a soldier because like he's, magnanimous and outgoing and like dynamic. He sees Britta as a malfunctioning device, which he even sings about. Britta bot functioning badly, wires with fraying ends, functioning mad and sadly, doesn't have any faith in her or her friends. Like, gosh, that's spitting bars.
Well, I kept on thinking with Britta, they wanted to like call her Bad Robot, but since that's like a
Bad Robot
production company,
but that's a lot of NBC shows are Rad Robot, aren't they? A couple of them are.
Maybe
I can't tell you,
or maybe they're
I've seen
CBS.
it before, but.
And he sees Annie as a creature of grace, which is really sweet. And he sees Shirley as a big baby who feels entitled to the Christmas of her choosing.
What was Pierce's? Did you say that?
He's a teddy bear because he sees Pierce as maybe somebody deserving of more love than he gets.
Oh yeah,
which is
that was one I couldn't. The other ones I could kind of figure out for the most part. Pierce's I was kind of confused about.
And I kind of see that as something that's one of my greatest like regrets for this show is I feel like Pierce and Jeff have a lot of really good interactions, and I feel like even Pierce and Troy do, but. Whenever Pierce dies and he gives everybody a gift, he doesn't really give anything to Abed. He's just like, I never understood you in life or in death, so here's your sperm. And I really wish that there would be some more like closure with that. So it is kind of good here to see. And then even realizing that Pierce is the last character to be with Abed.
He's a real OG in this episode, honestly.
Yeah. Because, he's like, I'm only here for the cookies and I have to take a wicked dump. And he comes back. He's like, wicked leak. And then he's like, I didn't, it gets lonely this time of year. So he sticks around. He even goes up to to bat for Abed of like, hey, look at that. You made the kid cry. You made them freeze up. What's your book going to be titled? The Worst Shrink Ever?
Yeah.
Or he's like, what if it's right there?
What if it's, good job. Exactly. So yeah, I absolutely love. And then even I kind of feel bad for Duncan because he does like emasculate himself. He blames Abed for it, but his 10th Christmas, he's like, this cream colored wallpaper in the living room, our house on 10th Street in Kensington. I'm reading Paddington. Mom always got Paddington. And then Abed's like, well, where's your dad, Professor? I don't know. We never know. Mom won't stop crying. Yeah. I'm going with Grandma to live in America. Or I'm going to America to live with Grandma. And
he leaves.
Yeah.
I love the way he goes in and out of like the scene. And he just like it's like a curtain over the door. Yeah.
Right. And you see the study room in the background, right? And then the last A+, because again, I love this episode, but is the sequence right between the cave collapsing and the train, because he makes Britta leave. Like, the wizard wasn't here to help us find the meaning of Christmas. So if you're on his side, you can't go. And he's like, I'm not kicking you out because you don't like Christmas. Like, I don't care about that. But it's because you lied to me about trying to find the meaning of Christmas. Mm-hmm. And then on the train, Troy and Abed, or Troy and Annie and Pierce stay with him, because Troy's his best friend. I love the detail that he puts his drumsticks in his toy soldier outfit to do the handshake.
Yeah.
And then Annie like gives him a little kiss because she actually genuinely cares about him. And then Pierce is along the way. And then Duncan on the train has a little quote. It's like, it's right now it's you against reality, and reality always wins. And like, dude, you're wrong for that. Like, you're right, but it's Christmas is one of those things where we all suspend our disbelief. Mm-hmm. And so you can really see his bitterness and his cynicism shining through it, that like he's exasperated that Abed is resisting him. And so he's like, I'm not even going to have this charade of me trying to help you. Like, I'm just spitting down the hard facts. So, man, but with that, I've talked a lot. But I do want to go through something a little different for this episode. So we talked about the different characters that Abed gives to his friends. Throughout the episode, the characters sort of go in and out like a Willy Wonka experience. Jeff gets eaten up by humbugs because he's too sarcastic. Shirley gets frozen because Abed challenges her notions of Christmas and she thinks Christmas is just for her. Britta has to stay behind in the cave like we've talked about. So I'm going to ask you guys, let's say that in an alternate timeline, there was the Greendale 8 and you were part of the Greendale 8. What character would Abed assign to you? And also, where in the episode would you fit in? Like, would you be somebody who leaves early? Would you be with him to the end? Like, I want this to be about you. Like, what would that character be for you? And have fun with it, And I hopefully you guys did a little bit of thinking about it ahead of time. I'm not trying to spring this on you spontaneously, but what would that be?
Well, also, I want to say before we move on, though, like the scene where Britta gets kicked out and the place is crumbling apart, and she's like, "You have to do this, or they'll kick you out of school." Like the sound design on that scene was so good.
Yeah,
I was like,
chills.
I was like legitimately like, oh geez, like
I was
get out of there. What are you doing?
Like,
obviously, it's not real, but I was like, yeah. But for me, I picked. Again, I was trying to think about it from the perspective of Abed.
Right.
So I would be Jay, the optimistic record player. And so my idea with that is really I've seen, I think Abed would notice that a lot of my ideas that I share really are made up of of a tapestry of other people's ideas that I've taken along the way.
Right.
And so I can only project other people's ideas. I can't actually play anything by myself.
Yeah.
And so and the other thing with that is I have to be carried where I go because
you're a record player.
Exactly.
Okay. So do you mind me asking, so in the episode, are you like ahead on a record player, or is your face in the disc that you're spinning? Like
for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm in my head, I'm in Abed has to have like a backpack for me to be put
like
in.
Dora the Explorer.
Yeah.
And so he can hear me the whole time, but no, not really anybody else can.
Okay.
And so my face is on that, I guess where the speaker would be, like that little section.
Mm-hmm.
So speaker, disc, headphone, thing, or not headset.
Are you talking about the scratch thingy? Or are you talking about like a phonograph?
A phonograph over the top. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'd be my face would just be on the face of the box itself.
Gotcha.
And so I'd go the whole way, just being on it, being on his side. I wouldn't really have much to add in terms of helping the group, in terms of moving the thing along, but I'd be in his ear being like, "You got this, man. This is gonna be good," and stuff like that. And then at the end, when they're fighting Duncan, I'd be throwing Bing Crosby records.
But
do you hear what I hear?
I feel like there'd be a funny joke of for the love of God, Jonathan, don't actually play the songs, because you'd have to pay for them.
Yeah.
But I really like that, because as a record player, you would spin the discs, and as a person, you can spin really anything positively in a positive light.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense for you. I like that.
Thank you.
So I was trying to think of something clever, and I kind of had the general idea of what I wanted in terms of characteristics, but I couldn't really think of it. And my wife, Kayla, helped me figure it out. She said I should be like a golden retriever, like a stuffed golden retriever.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going with the stuffed golden retriever. It's a stretch, but close. Just because I'm definitely a very empathetic person, and that's one of my maybe a weakness, but I think it's a strength. And I mean, I tend to be a very loyal person to people. So in this case, talking about the episode, I think that Abed and I would, I would be with him to the end. Even if I might have a different attachment to Christmas. Everybody has a different meaning for Christmas, but for Abed, I want him to find that. I want him to figure out what happened, what's going on. And I've been told I have big puppy dog eyes, so that would also go the dog part. And then I also wrote down I'm willing to quote retrieve or do tricks for people, because I'm kind of a people pleaser. So again, kind of a downside, but that's just how I am in my personality. As a compassionate person. So that's what I went with, is a stuffed golden retriever, and I would just basically be a stuffed animal dog with my head on it, I guess. And then at the end, I this is really just has nothing to do with the dog, but I wrote down my weapon to
fight Duncan.
Fight Duncan would be a candy cane tana, like a katana sword. Just because everybody else had like guns and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was trying to go, and Troy had, I think it was Troy that had like the candy cane nunchucks, which was kind of cool. So I wanted something that was more handheld.
I like that. Maybe you could even fight some Christmas pterodactyls that are trying to like take Abed away. Yeah, I like that. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to think about that. I always love, taking BuzzFeed quizzes and thinking about, what type of bread I am. Because it personalizes something to you that nobody else can take. I mean, that's how I design all of my tattoos as well. Right. So I really wanted to do this because it doesn't matter because obviously that's not how the episode goes. But it's always fun to see what people come up with. So I thought a lot about, I don't want to be the middle schooler of like, if somebody asks you a question, you go over to like the top of like, if I was in the episode, Abed would see me as a crusading warrior with a really cool sword and a shield. Right, pretty much.
Undertaker action figure.
Right. Which that would have been good, like a pro wrestling action figure.
I thought about doing an action
figure. So looking at Abed, he sees his friends for who they are, right? Like, so the strengths and the weaknesses that Britta bought, like she has a purpose in life, but she doesn't perform it well. So she's a malfunctioning. So this is a stretch, but I think that he would see me as the blanketable snowman or like the comfort yeti. Basically, so in my mind, I pictured this, like, think of the snowman from Rudolph, but it's got my head, and it's made from like quilt material of like layered blankets. And so like from the claymation experience of it, you actually see like the threads. And the logic behind that is that like, I'm not a big person. Like I'm 5'9", 5'10", 160 pounds, trying to lose weight. So I'm not intimidating. I'm not like imposing. I'm not like a Chad dude bro. But I would like to think that Abed would see like my character, like my personality and like my passion for things as like big. So like with the blanket yeti, he wants to have this like dichotomy of, a yeti is only in the mountains of the Himalayas, right? Or a Bigfoot is always hidden. So like there's like this tension of wanting to be reclusive and like hide myself away and be alone, but I also want to like help others and like make them feel more comfortable. So like, as a blanket yeti, I'm just this giant, huggable, I guess, kind of like Pierce the teddy bear. I didn't think about that, but I'm going to go a little different from you guys. I honestly don't think that I'd go the whole way with Abed, and not out of like spite, not because I don't care about him trying to find the meaning of Christmas. I think my hang up would be, I already have my established notions of Christmas and like how like in the past I've been disappointed, or there have been like some sad things. Like our family has a lot of like loss around that time. So what I would do is I would insert like a brief, like 30-second scene right after when the cave of frozen memories collapses. Because in the real episode, you just see the train leave straight after that. Mm-hmm. I would actually add a scene or a shot where there's like a train platform that's taking off, and Troy, Annie, and Pierce would get on the train, and I'd like stop right before I get on and be like, "Hey, Abed, like I'm all for you, buddy. Like find the meaning of Christmas and do it for yourself, but also do it for me. Because if you can do it, like maybe there's hope for people like me too." And then like as the train would go away, Abed would sing about, the comfort yeti being willing to unravel for everybody else except for himself. Like he always comes just short of healing and comfort. And like as the train pulls away, like the comfort yeti like kind of unravels, like literally,
and then freezes over just like the flat blankets on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe in the span of like real life, if I'm in the episode, that's me coming to the realization of like, oh, Abed's right. Like I need to do some soul searching as well. But in the end, whenever we're fighting Duncan, I would want to come back as the blanket yeti. I put myself back together, and I'd have like a belt fed machine gun, and the belt is like a quilt or like, knitted, and then it'd shoot out yarn balls. I feel like that'd be fitting. Guys, I almost cried talking about that. Like it's completely, not related to anything, but that's a fun thing to think about.
For sure.
So for our listeners, if you would like to submit proposals to what your character would be, follow us on Twitter at Milestone Media, and you can put your
at us.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, I need to calm down a little bit. Leading the class, that's where we're at now, right? Who do you guys have for leading the class?
I had Duncan. I'm just a big Duncan fan, as you guys know, but also I liked his role as a villain in this episode. I thought that his conversation with Abed on the train, again, like just the way that scene was like designed with like the sound, like it was like the train roaring, but like so they have to talk loud, like you caught, like you're in a delusion of it, like you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
hey, you idiot! You're grabbing me in real life.
Yeah. So I just thought the like design of that whole of that section, him just trying to get published, like, but also like him kind of leading the group through it, like
Shut up, Winger.
it kind of reminds me of like gosh, I can't remember. I think it's actually National Treasure 2, where like Ed Harris like starts with the group and like on the same side, but then eventually I'm thinking of a different, I can't remember, but eventually like kind of like goes against the group in the midst, like it's kind of one of those kind of flips where it's like, oh, you can't do it. It's like, no, we can. It's like, no, you can't. Now you can't, like, you know, or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I liked what he did in this episode.
I'm going with Pierce. He's the real MVP in this episode just because I think you kind of expect Troy and Annie to make it to the end just because they're kind of like seen as the nice, you know, they're probably closer to Abed. But then Pierce kind of comes out of nowhere, literally comes out of nowhere on the train, like out of the bathroom, and you kind of forgot about him. He's like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm here, like kind of lonely around this time of year. I'm here for you. And it's not so much that I think Pierce really shows that he cares about Abed that much, but I think he's also like, hey, if the kid wants to, you know, whatever.
Right.
Like,
he knows the struggle.
Yeah. He understands it, and he's just willing to. Hey, Abed wants to do this. Let him do it. Like, nothing wrong with this. You know, I don't have much of a attachment to Christmas right now, but that doesn't mean Abed can't. You know.
Yeah.
This is a very rare thing for Pierce to kind of like be like a nice guy.
Yeah.
He could have made a lot of like very racist comments or whatever, you know, about Abed.
He did.
He does make a few,
but he counter-redeems himself.
Yeah. And so he redeems himself at the end, showing, you know, how much he. I think just how much he still factors into the group. He's not just the butt of the joke. It's kind of nice to see. Christian, what'd you have?
I don't even think that we've talked about how the episode really ends. Have we?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you haven't watched the episode yet, spoilers, I guess, but I'm assuming you've seen the episode if you're watching our podcast. So the whole reason why Abed is in the claymation is because he has like trauma because his mom isn't going to come see him. And the thing is that like every year on December 9th, his mom comes to visit him and they watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which I really like that's how they incorporate the claymation in. Is he's having this delusion because he's like drawing from this old experience. Yeah. And
it just kind of seems random at first.
Right? Like, oh, it's a Christmas episode. Yeah. So, right. And Duncan finds a letter that Abed's mom wrote to him because she's remarried since they've been divorced, or her and his dad have gotten divorced. And so she's not coming. And so that's what kind of sent Abed into this ball of trauma of like, well, this one thing that I can expect every single year is not going to happen. And then the conclusion of the episode is, you know, Duncan is making Abed face facts. So he like literally freezes over in the episode. He goes catatonic, and then the Greendale 7 come back, the Greendale 6. And they basically decide that Christmas has meaning because we say that it has meaning, like, which I really like. I really like that conclusion. That again, we've already talked about how all of us have, you know, hangups and, you know, traditions and disappointments and successes about Christmas. So maybe deep down, it's just about the fact that we say it's special. So it is. But for that reason, I agree with Ethan that Pierce is probably leading the class for me. I think Troy and Annie have a good case too, because they stick by Abed the whole time. But he recognizes that like, hey, yeah, this time of year is lonely. And whenever he's singing the Christmas song, he's like, music and liquor and something and cheer. Yeah. I can't remember what the third thing is, but like he's a gruff old man, but he still cares about Christmas, you know? And I don't know. That's what I really like about the episode is this at this stage of my life at 22, like obviously it's not about gifts. Christmas, like December is a rough time because it's cold and the days are really short. And so it just seems sort of like ridiculous that we all pretend that everything is fine for a day or 2 days or 3 days. To me, it doesn't really seem authentic that we get together and we don't acknowledge the things that have changed. We don't acknowledge the bad things. Like Abed's parents are divorced. Jeff's parents are divorced. All of our parents are divorced. So like being on the Shirley end of things of like, nope, it's all about the birth of Jesus, which it is, right? That we're all Christians, so we think that. But to not acknowledge the irony of the time of year of like, oh, like, and Annie even mentions that too. Like the darkest nights can be the warmest and brightest, which is kind of like a Christopher Nolan quote, you know, the darkest always night is just before the dawn. No more dead cops. yeah. Annie was the hero that we didn't need, but we deserved.
If I could be here, there could be no party.
No guns. No killers.
Christmas was born on a lie. Okay,
Bane, what would you be in Abed's special
Yeah.
Christmas?
it'd be very painful.
It'd be very painful. I really went off the deep end on that one. Gosh, for extra credit,
what even is this episode?
this is my therapy session. Just think about, so on a lighter note, just think about whenever this episode aired. Imagine if you'd never watched Community before and you flipped to NBC in, November of 2010, and this was what you were watching. Like, what would your thoughts be? Like, it must be really weird if you, you still need to have a bit of background about, you need to know who Duncan is, you need to know who Britta and Jeff are. Like, this episode almost stands by itself as like an allegory for the meaning of Christmas as an adult, but you still need to have some community background. Like, you can't just like watch this alongside Rudolph or Charlie Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I'd probably think that, God. Well, I would think, oh gosh, a show in 2010 doing claymation, like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
Outside of Robot Chicken, like, so, but yeah, gosh, I'd probably like give it a shot at least for a little bit, just because it's the format's so different.
Niche, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, I'm just not a big claymation person, so I'd probably like give it like a couple minutes, and like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
That's what Community is,
Yep.
And then I'd like see a trailer like, oh, they're doing a live action episode. Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they made the Community cartoon into a real thing.
yeah,
And they're making it into a movie someday, I hope.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned that yet, have we?
I know, not yet. Yeah,
And a movie coming
News,
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, wow, we've really blown that one. We haven't even talked about the movie coming out next year.
2023.
on Peacock. A lot of excitement. We might have to have a rewatch pod for that.
Oh,
when it
for
comes
sure.
out.
A rewatch.
Yes, yes. Did you have any other extra credit?
Oh, I've talked way too long. You guys are good.
Well, one thing I noticed that I really thought was kind of a cute little wholesome thing at the very end is whenever it shows, I think is it the Dean and Duncan that are like drinking, and the Dean's like, "Have you ever had the urge to say Merry Christmas?" And then like in the background, the group's like taking the Christmas tree out of the Christmas zone or holiday zone, and then Shirley goes back and grabs the menorah too.
Oh,
That's kind of a nice, because Shirley's not the person you'd expect to do that.
Yeah.
But
right.
she's
I
like,
didn't,
"You
I
know
didn't
what?
notice that.
Menorah for Annie, a very nice little wholesome Easter egg in the very very back. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I didn't
Nice.
notice that.
Yeah.
One like small thing that like it's consistent throughout the series is
Imagine if this whole episode has been on mute.
yeah.
I have to go through all my childhood trauma again.
Yeah. No, but the Dean uses like the boombox to like give like the public speech in like the cafeteria, and like that's consistent with season 1, the first episode.
Yeah.
And yeah, just nice little Easter egg there. I'd probably say again, this is really a top tier Community episode, like for me. We've all talked about kind of how it hits emotionally. I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons. But I found myself laughing a lot in this episode. Like good quips, just like good little jokes throughout the whole thing. Even Abed at the end just going, "Thanks, Lost." Like,
Yeah.
So, I'd probably, I want to give it a 9, but
Ethan.
impressive episode.
I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. So Christian, you're gonna hate me for sure. It's a good episode. I'm not. 8's good. It's not the funniest though. Really, I don't feel like I laughed a ton at it. There's some good funny moments, I guess. But in terms of like Community jokes, it's not as funny as some of the other ones. So for that reason, it's not as enjoyable for me. But like especially around Christmas time, if I was, watching through Community again for whatever time this is now for me, like 5th or 6th, and like I just happened to time it up where I could watch this episode around Christmas time, or even if I didn't, I could just go back and watch it. It doesn't really have to be in the order of it being season 2, but it works as a Christmas episode, and it's especially when you have an attachment to the characters, it's wholesome and it's a nice. I think we talked about, or Christian, I think you mentioned this, like the use of claymation in itself is unique because they're spoofing a Christmas episode, but then it actually has meaning because it has a tie back to Abed's childhood. So
It has meaning.
Has
interpretations of the. Sorry.
And I like that notion that meaning of Christmas is that Christmas has meaning. Everybody has a different relationship to Christmas, and that's what is meaningful about it. And I've never thought about it that way, but I think that's a nice way to put it, and definitely makes you think. So 8 out of 10 for me. It's a good episode, but not as funny as some others. But
People in our family be like, yeah, Christmas has meaning to everybody, but we know that the real meaning of Christmas is that Jesus was born on December 25th, which Britta makes a good point that he wasn't,
he
but
was actually born in April.
right, or September. they're not sure. But no, I don't. I mean, I don't hate you for thinking that it's an 8 out of 10. Again, this episode, I use the term heavy lifting a lot in this podcast, but I'm going to keep this episode in a league of its own. Like, I give this rating and Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas out of Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. Like, if I had to show somebody like a meaningful sitcom episode, this would be the episode. And like, I would want them to have a little bit of background, so I wouldn't have to explain who Duncan is and who, you know, the characters are,
or why Abed would be making a
right. Yeah. Exactly. But I just think in terms of, I admit it's not the funniest episode. You know, there are some funny quips, but for the sake of like what it means to me as a 22-year-old post-college student who has dealt with the disappointments of Christmas and, you know, the feelings along that, this is a perfect episode to me. I mean, for sure.
No, but so with Asian population studies, A+ scenes.
Well, you gotta give a synopsis of the episode first.
Oh, you're right. My fault. Okay, Asian population studies. Let's see. How are we gonna synopsis this? Basically, Chang wants to like. It rings up the idea again of like, hey, you guys said I could possibly, you know, consider joining the study group. There's like a good joke in there where he's like, well,
if I had to give a decision now,
yeah, it's like if I have to give a decision right now, it's gonna be a no. Take your time,
sleep on it. Back to me,
or else.
But
so Chang wants to join the group, but Rich and Annie kind of start, you know, something starts building over New Year's break, right? And then they decide to figure out who's going to join the study group by having like a mixer and like having a vote and all this. And yeah, that's basically kind of what happens. And hilarity
ensues.
Oh, well, so then potentially, so we know Shirley's pregnant.
We find out that she's pregnant.
Yes, and Andre is back. Her ex-husband has returned.
Mm-hmm.
Rejoice.
We believe that he has impregnated Shirley.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't put it like that. But he knew her in the biblical sense.
But then it is revealed that Chang and Shirley had a little fling on the Halloween party that nobody remembers. So there's some confusion over whether Chang is the father or Andre is the father. And, there's still a mystery going on. So best scenes, best lines, A+. Jonathan, what you got?
There was a pretty early on. So Duncan said he's like done drinking, and he's like, please someone remind me where we left off. Fat Neil, the Gilded Age. Thank you, Fat Neil. Neil's fine. Not from an actuarial standpoint.
First appearance of Fat Neil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When Rich walks in, he talks about how he was like taking care of those puppies or whatever at the pound, and he's like talking about how over winter break they were cleaning the highway or whatever, and he found a finger. He's like, and I wasn't thrown off by that because I'm a doctor. And everyone's like, oh, and Abed underneath like the crowd says, "You're valuable."
I didn't even realize that. That's funny.
So what's his name? Troy goes up to talk to Abed during the mixer.
Andre.
Oh, Troy, thank you. Let's walk.
Troy and Andre in the evening.
Walks up to Andre during the evening. During the evening mixer, and tries to like kind of find out if when Andre and Shirley might have had a night of their own, if you know what I mean. But
bumping boots,
awful
sideways shuffle.
Did the dirty, yeah. But
newer in the biblical sense, we're being real here.
But like obviously Troy's awful at it, and Audrey just goes, I'm gonna go talk to some other people, all right? Like,
well, you have to tell him what Troy says.
What is Troy?
He's like, man, whenever the leaves are on the ground, all those pumpkins, nature's Viagra, huh?
Yeah. Well, and then he's like, and then all the kids take off their costumes
because they got gotten their candy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go talk to some other people now. And then Troy's like, his mind is a fortress.
Yeah. And then this is my favorite quip of the whole episode, or the joke of the whole episode. This got me rolling when I was a kid. But Jeff and Andre, when they're talking outside, Jeff goes, "Nice sweater," and Andre goes, "My dad gave it to me." Because Malcolm Jamal Warner played one of Bill Cosby's kids in the Cosby Show, famously with the Cosby sweaters that were like multicolored and stuff like that.
It's a fun little callback.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. I didn't know he was in the Cosby Show, I guess.
I mean, I looked it up too, but it's still a fun little callback.
Which is like, it's weird to talk about now because I mean that show is legendary and still is.
And when Community came out, I don't think Bill Cosby was a
Blacklisted.
yeah.
So
Awful person.
but hey,
I mean, he was an awful person, but we just didn't know about it.
yeah.
Yes.
But what do y'all got?
I like the group not knowing anybody's names and like just describing them as like I can't even remember. What are some of the
Michael Chiklis?
Black Michael Chiklis and white George Foreman.
Yeah.
His name is David.
Yeah.
He's biracial and he's a human being.
I agree with we need to learn people's names. I agree with Brown Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's nice. That's the cold open, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. There's just this weird running joke in Community that people hate dioramas for some reason,
Mhm.
and that cracks me up. It's such a random thing for people to hate.
There will be more than one diorama.
My boys are in grade school and they don't do this many dioramas.
Yeah. And then like whenever Jeff's doing the speech, like of why they should bring Chang in, and I can't remember how it goes, but he like says something like, "We all know Chang is crazy. Let him finish."
Yeah.
And it keeps getting worse.
He smells like Band-Aids.
Yeah. He smells like Band-Aids. They have me dying. He has a lot of descriptions, and I can't remember what they are. But
He holds his fork like a serial killer.
yeah,
Skewered the payload onto his. Yeah.
and that's good Jeff, like a lawyer speak, but
Mhm.
he's very, very eloquent. And then of course the final scene of like, or I don't know if it's the final scene, one of the last scenes when Abed like tells Jeff like, yeah, Annie texted me and said she was going to ask out Rich, but he turned her down because she's too young. And then Jeff like starts running and it's raining, and it's kind of like this dramatic like end scene. And you see like montage of like everybody else, and then he's like, "Don't say anything. This whole time I've known you." And he gives us like the speech. You think he's at Annie's, and he's at Rich's place.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
And if you don't help me,
Great twist.
You're a bad person.
Yeah. Great twist.
Well, you got me there, fella.
Yeah,
Come on in.
Come on in.
are you making? Yeah, muffin tops.
Yeah. Great twist. And just honestly, like, you know what? I'm finally glad that Jeff and Rich are getting along, because
Mhm.
we hate Rich, but at the same time, he is a good guy. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that Jeff's realizing that. So
See, I think my favorite line in Jeff's monologue was that he was trying to compare, what was it? Jeffrey Dahmer,
Yeah.
Ted Bundy, Rich.
Yeah.
We don't know them.
Yeah.
But I like the line where he says, nobody, you can't get worse than this person. He points to Chang, but nobody's this good of a person.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Rich. And I like that idea of like, okay, whenever you have somebody around you in your group, would you rather hang out with somebody who has flaws that are very apparent, but they're authentic in that and they don't try to mask it? Or would you rather have somebody in your circle who is, a nice guy, quote unquote, or a nice gal, but like it doesn't come across as genuine. Like there's something more to it.
and I say if I could have Rich, because yes, I know what his point is, and it's funny in the context of the show of like, no, Chang is like ridiculously crazy. Rich can't be that bad. I don't know. It just like, obviously Chang is just like not even like, it's not even that he's weird or crazy. He's just like insane, like a serial killer almost. It's
See,
like, why would you pick him over Rich?
I guess I guess I just hate Rich that much that I actually agreed with Jeff. Like, even though he was just, BSing to get Rich out of the group. But I also love Britta's line with Shirley whenever she tells everybody that Andre is kind of back in her life. She says, "Shirley, I've been fed a lot of soft serve by a lot of guys. Sometimes it's rent money. Sometimes it's Chili Peppers tickets," which Fat Neil gives her whenever she shows him her breasts. And I'll admit it. One time it was a gym bag full of nickels, but it never lasts and they never change. I just love how hyper specific a gym bag full of nickels is, because like that can't really be that much money.
Yeah, I'm like, because like an average gym bag, what, maybe 45.
That's gotta be heavy though.
Yeah,
right?
Well, it's gonna be heavy.
Like if it was a gym bag full of quarters, like that could be worth some money. Like it was a couple hundred, but like nickels are about the size of a quarter and they are worth like a fifth of that. Thank you. I can't think of math. I also love the mixer. Like everything about the mixer is pretty well paced and the jokes are hit well. But if I was somebody in anthropology class and got invited to that and I saw that there were tropical Skittles, cigarettes, and mouthwash on the table, I would just like leave. Like,
okay, so I don't understand that they get tropical Skittles though.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too.
I think those are good. I don't know why.
I don't know if that was a dig at the fact that nobody likes them, or if it was just like, that was all that was left because they haven't restocked the machines.
It could be, but I just like I think they're trying to dig at like, oh, nobody really likes these, so that's what was left in the vending machine. But don't people like tropical Skittles?
I love tropical.
Yeah,
Skittles.
Like, why would that be left over?
I figured that was just like another hyper specific, sort of the Jan Michael Vincent of Skittles.
It's just so random, specific that it is funny.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think it would have made more sense if it was like, oh, all we had left were like these cigarettes and like these Zero bars, or something like that. Like nobody eats those, or Payday bars.
peanut M&Ms.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I was a person at that event, I would like walk in and see him like, oh, this is a waste. And I would turn around to leave. But then I would still like give Annie some like BS excuse of like, oh, sorry. Like, I just remembered like I'm going to meet my friends later. Like I wouldn't want to hurt Annie's feelings, but I wouldn't want to stay at that event. Like it's just sort of like, and maybe that's part of the joke too of like, oh, it was a spontaneous thing. You know, they didn't have time to cater it. So they just got stuff from the vending machines. And then like, yeah, of course, after you're back from, winter break, that all the vending machines are stale and outdated.
A part of me though also feels like it's a bit of like that group entitlement. Because the group feels like they're the group.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
she's you probably knew this as that study group.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh, I'm sorry we couldn't get you, filet mignon and, Caesar salad, but like be grateful. You know what I mean? Like, so
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. We get introduced to Kendra with the QU.
I spelled my kettle corn with the QU.
Well, don't. I love the line where she walks up and she says, "Are you Abed? I love Star Wars." That's Troy. I love footballs.
Well, the funny thing with don't like with the kettle corn, like she doesn't even acknowledge Jeff. She just like,
yeah.
Oh man, well yeah. Let's see, where we at? Leading class or?
Do you have any more A plus, Christian?
Oh, also okay. No, I'm gonna say it's for my extra credit. We're good. We're good with that.
Okay.
With leading the class, I had Jeff. Something I loved about the argument scene for Chang too is like it took him a second to think about it, and like we always just see Jeff kind of like roll into something, but it's nice like to kind of have that human moment of like, am I stalling? When like I think about that with like really like everyday talking, where it's like I don't really know what to say. Oh, but I like you kind of have to like let your mind kind of like machinate, and so it was kind of like that was kind of like
you have to let it Brita bot a little bit.
Yeah. What about y'all?
I went with Troy. I this episode sucks. I don't like this episode that much. It's so boring. I wrote down best player on the Jets, which means like you might be the best player on the Jets, but like you're on the Jets, like it's a pretty low bar. And like Troy is to me like the best of the 7 in this episode, but that's not saying much because I think everybody kind of just nobody really stands out. Not that anybody sucks. It's just a boring episode.
Mm-hmm.
I do like when he talks to Andre about going up to asking him like, isn't fall a great time? That cracked me up. But nobody else really stood out. And I guess Jeff's speech is pretty funny, but it's just a boring episode. Nobody really made me laugh that much and really stood out to me. So,
fair.
That's a good point. There's not a lot of stellar characters. I feel like Shirley gets it for me because she like is taking the whole like being pregnant unexpectedly thing really well. And I feel really bad for her. Like it seems out of character for Andre to get mad at her whenever she finds that or he finds out that Chang slept with her. Like I genuinely feel bad. And that's what Troy says is like, man, if you slept with Chang and had the benefit of not knowing about it, like
that's a gift from God.
Yeah, it's a gift from God, right? And so I feel for Shirley, which I don't often in this series, but so maybe it's more pity points than actually leading the class.
But also like kind of with that whole thing, I get because I find this oftentimes in my own relationships, my own life, like oftentimes when I'm mad at somebody else, like I'm mad at the situation, like I'm really just mad at myself that like I didn't do my part, and like he said, like, oh, if I didn't make my mistake, none of this happens, and it's like
that's a good point.
Like that's like
so maybe Andre leads the class for you.
I almost went with her on Andre just because he's honestly, it's hard to see like you kind of forget that he cheated on Shirley. Yeah. And that's kind of I think maybe the point they make a little bit is like he's past that. Oh yeah, this guy's also a bad person, but like he's trying to be a better guy now. He's like, hey, I'm going to be around whatever, whether it's Chang's baby or mine. Like,
right. It's almost like overcompensation though.
It does seem a little like too good to be true, but
I like it. I'm for it.
It's courageous. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like before I entered in my current relationship, like I got really into like do you guys know like what like red pill community is? Like so the red pill community is like this. It's weird to describe, but like basically you know how like in talk shows, like all female talk shows, like, well, here's the problem with men do this, like, so it's like that, but it's like kind of this underground like internet community, like just about that, but like flip the genders, like here's the problem with women, and like like, oh, this is how you be like a top flight man, and like this one needs to be a sigma male and all this stuff.
So like kind of like incels.
a little bit.
Sorry, bud, but like
the cool side of incel.
right.
But like, a lot of that, like you'll hear that in the red pill community a lot, where it's like, oh, if you're like, you never want to be with a
girl who already has kids.
Yeah, like you never want to be with another man's kids. Like that's like a huge thing, and it's like, I get where they're coming from. Like, whatever.
If you weren't a Christian, that makes sense.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
But like, I just think like, man, like Andre's attitude towards that, like, hey, that might be his like father, but I'm his dad. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just such a beautiful, like, courageous attitude to have towards that situation.
Yeah. I hadn't thought I'd considered that element of it. I mean, that's the season of life that I'm in, is dating. And whenever I was in high school and like I was interested in somebody, being a Christian who was a teenager and a Christian, I was like, all right, well, nobody wants street meat. They want only like a pristine virgin. That's the only person that you can date. But I disagree with, the red pill community, and I'm probably going to get car bombed saying that. I'm going to have miniature car bombed like Andy was in the last episode. But I feel like there's something admirable about taking on like somebody else's burdens, you know, like, okay, you in like the family structure, you should already be with the person you had kids with, but like, that's not the reality. Like if you have to leave for a toxic relationship, or like just things don't go that way, like as a Christian, it doesn't seem like there's anything less spiritual than to like become that person's paternal figure, right? Like we're all adopted into the kingdom of heaven. So like whenever I'm considering dating people, like that's not an issue for me. Yeah. And like I feel like that is an issue for a lot of guys.
Oh yeah.
So I do give Andre, like, again, it seems a little unrealistic that he would just have no qualms about it that same day. Like I could see eventually him coming around to it, but good on you, Andre. Yeah. I'm proud of you for that.
Or like, this is a little Christian talk. Well, I'll tell you what, something that really messed with my head. This happened like 3 years ago. Some guy, like I was just talking to him about like relationships and stuff. Like, man, I'm never gonna be with a girl who's ever done anything with a guy, or like, and it was like I never even like thought about like I had always come like with the side of it like I don't care what she's done with anybody else. Like she's with me now. Like that's whatever. And like he like laid out his side of it. Like I'm not, and it's like the thing where like I'm not even sure if I necessarily agree with him, but like I never even heard like another guy like, oh, I don't want to be with a girl who's on anything. And like I think it really kind of messed me up. Like I don't know.
See, I do understand that perspective, because I think for me it's the idea of like I want our relationship to be special. Like I don't want there to be this like previous baggage, or like to be compared to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then even like you just look at like the anthropological, since we're in anthropology this season, of like like mating with somebody, like the man's goal in life, primate brain, is to like have kids, right?
Spread my seed.
I mean, that's exactly to know somebody in the biblical sense, right? I mean, that's what, you do the research on like, brains on pornography. Like that's what your brain is doing, is like, oh, I am doing that with everybody, and so I can understand where your friend is coming from, but I think that is something like over time I've realized, like, you're right. That's where they were in life. That's not where they are now. Yeah. And if they are with me, like I can make that conscious choice to not like aggravate that, or to like to carry it, like make it go further, make it go worse. So,
and also like if they choose me, they clearly don't want that other guy. So it's like at the end of the day, like,
right? Like, I see this as an absolute win, right?
Yeah. But yeah.
So extra credit. I think we're good on that. They completely gloss over the fact that Pierce is back walking again. Like he was walking in the Abed's Christmas episode because he had to go take a leak, but they could have made a whole episode about Pierce getting his legs back.
Yeah.
Like there's the whole trope of like, oh, well, he's just using people to, he's exploiting, like, oh, can you get that for me? Like think of Squidward losing his job and staying with SpongeBob so much later that they had to hire a new, but yeah, it's just kind of crazy that he's just like back on his feet in this episode. So I thought that was interesting. Also, at the end, Ethan pointed out that Jeff is running through the rain to get to Rich's apartment, but they're in Colorado in January. He should be freezing his butt off because like they just came back from Christmas break. So you'd think that it'd be snow, or maybe they just kind of forgot and they wanted to go for the dramatic shot. And also, this is the last time we see Rich. He goes over in the story arc. Like maybe I'm just so bitter that I don't want to see Rich succeed, but he really goes over because he gets to be with Troy and Abed. Like Jeff submits to him. We're talking about the Sigma male, alpha male thing again. which is interesting. I would think that they would want to have like turns out Rich wasn't as great as we thought he was. He, I don't know, ran over three people in a boating accident.
He was on the roller coaster, and his brother was on the roller coaster. Right. Should have been Rich that died. We get that, but that's his dark past. But we never actually get where he's like, oh yeah, it turns out Jeff was right. Rich does suck.
Yeah.
Or like he doesn't have that recognition of like, I'm not as great as I say that I am, or that I try to be. Mm-hmm. And I think I've talked about on the podcast, like Christian music, worship leaders, and how I feel about that those people are as genuine as they feel genuine about it. I just don't think that they're genuine.
Oh,
and so maybe that's how I feel about Rich, is that he really does believe those things, but I'm such a bad person that I want him to come down to my level. So I don't know. I digress.
In terms of final, or like Martin read, this is maybe that's like a selfish way to look at it, but since I figure at this point, like the group knows that Jeff doesn't like Rich. So does that therefore make Annie a bad friend for wanting to bring Rich to the group, knowing that like that's gonna like bring drama?
That's interesting, because Jeff and Annie have that discussion of like, oh, you think you're gonna say it's because I'm jealous of you, but I'm not. I don't like Rich. I think it's both. I think he doesn't like Rich, and I think he especially is like, well, I wasn't jealous, but now I am, because you want to date Rich, Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
That
I guess I don't think that it makes Annie a bad friend, but I don't think she's in the wrong. Because she likes Rich. That's
it's her prerogative,
and right. And I think she has a point. Like, Jeff needs to make up his mind on what he wants. And he has that line where it's like, well, I don't know, it's confusing. He says something about like it's complicated, or basically just like, I don't really know. It's hard to explain. It's like, okay, it doesn't, like, dude, you're like 40. Like, you need to. This girl is so much younger than you and still has like
feelings for you.
She has feelings for you, but she also needs to know, like, you're, for better lack of a term, like, you've kind of hit your peak. Like, you're in that stage of life now where like you kind of are, I don't want to say on the downhill, like you're kind of over the hill a little bit, or getting to that point. Annie's still got a whole lot of life ahead of her. She needs to know, like, do I need to wait on this guy? Is he going to wait on me? Or like, do I just need to go for somebody else?
Yeah.
And like, I know Rich is old too, but like, at least Rich is pretty straightforward that he likes Annie, and which obviously he doesn't want to date her. We find that out later, but again, I've mentioned this before, so I have an issue with Jeff and Annie anyway as a relationship, just because of the age difference. But even like, just, she has a good point. Like, if you're not gonna, if Jeff's messing around with all these other girls and he just is kind of a playboy, Annie really has no need to wait for him. She doesn't owe him anything.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that asking for Rich to be in their group was a bad thing for her to do. We haven't really seen any of these characters date yet, somebody else. So, I mean, we will eventually, but it kind of sets us that standard of like, okay, well, if one of us gets a boyfriend or girlfriend, are we going to let them be in the group now? Because they're kind of, your friend. We haven't seen that yet. So obviously they won't be, but.
It's something else with like the Annie Jeff dynamic too. This kind of just came to me, but like, okay, I've been in situations like dating wise where like, it's like, okay, gun to my head, like, true answer, I like you, but I'm afraid of like what other people will think if I date you. Like that's I've gone in that situation. But if that's any part of the psychology of Jeff, like whether that's because of age or whatever, like who do you have to impress? Like, you're not close to your family. Like, all your closest friends, like already like Annie, and like would be whatever.
It's like that disembodied critic.
Yeah.
Of like, I know that you're the best thing ever for me, but everything outside of that is screaming at me that this is like, it's taboo because you're younger than me. You're my friend. We have a friend group. So I get him being back and forth on it, but I agree as well that it's frustrating from Annie's perspective that he won't give an answer.
I don't know. I have a lot of this episode just sucks anyway. Like I said, it's not that funny. Honestly, I think it's really boring. There's really not like a great wrap up to like yes, there's a wrap up to the plot where like, yeah, Andre is fine with whatever, he's just gonna be there, and like Jeff, like Annie finds out she's not gonna date Rich, and he goes to talk whatever. It's just, I don't know, it's just such a mid. Really, it seems like it just kind of is more to set up the Chang and Shirley plot. It really has no other impact on the other characters, because then like, yeah, we get that like Jeff and Annie, we don't know if they're actually gonna date. He kind of is confused, but then it's not like he goes and
acts on it
out, that's the joke, is that we think he's going to and he doesn't. But it doesn't really have a lot of weight for me in terms of at being an important episode. And again, it's not that funny.
Mhm.
So I mean, I was going to get like a 5 out of 10 for a rating. Honestly, I might be even lower than that now. Just talking about it. I might be like at a 4.5 out of 10 or 4.
Yeah.
One nitpick I have, or just something I noticed, it's not really a huge issue, but Fat Neil, you mentioned he gives Britta concert tickets, so she'll flash him. Why is this not mentioned whenever he plays Dungeons and Dragons with them?
Maybe they just weren't planning on that, like with the episode, and then they wrote it later.
I mean, it's only 2 episodes away, though.
That's a good point. Yeah,
like
that's true.
Britta never acknowledges it. They never have like this weird, like, oh, hey Neil, how's it going? Hey Britta,
Wink,
thanks for the
wink.
tickets or whatever.
Right.
It's never.
Well, if you think about it too, later on, Neil's kind of a bad guy because like he ruins their yams with the biology episode. Like the D&D episode is really the only time that he's portrayed like as a hero or like as a protagonist alongside the Greendale Seven. Other times he's just kind of seen like as a joke. Like you could replace Fat Neil with Leonard in that scene where he gives her Chili Peppers tickets, which would be really weird. Because I'm sure Leonard to Britta is the same as Jeff to Amy.
I think it would have been funnier if it was some random person that we didn't already know of. But we'd already seen Fat Neil. I guess this is the same episode he gets introduced. And then either have basically Fat Neil in Dungeons and Dragons and Fat Neil in this episode need to be 2 different people. I just don't think it. I don't know. It just is such an awkward thing to happen. And for him to be part of the group, basically.
And then her trying to help him out later.
Yeah. She's trying to help him. And they don't acknowledge it,
Yeah.
But
I get that.
not a huge thing. I don't know. Did you rate the episode yet, Jonathan?
I'll give it, I don't know.
Best I can do is 350.
About 350. I don't know. I had some good laughs. I'll probably get 5 out of 10. Yeah, straight up.
I think this episode does a great job of what it's supposed to do, which is set up the Chang storyline and wrap up sort of the first half of season 2. I give it a cattle corn out of Pringles in terms of snackable snacks. It's not great. I'm not like Pierce, where I love kettle corn a whole lot. So I'll get a kettle corn.
If you don't vote for Rich, I will destroy your life. I'll shatter your life.
Shatter your world.
Well, I think we're halfway with season 2 now, right? Since we're at winter break. So we're getting there. Next time we will be on Dungeons and Dragons 2.
Don't forget to submit your Abed special Christmas character to Twitter, who you think you might be.
All right, so